Hello everyone, Wenzeltron here. Today we're going to cover my Lunara build guide. Lunara is a ranged assassin, specializing in poke and applying consistent pressure to the enemy team. This unique pressure comes in the form of her trait, Nature's Toxin. Lunara's basic attacks and damaging abilities poison their target, dealing damage for 3 seconds. Every additional application increases the duration up to 9 seconds total. Lunara's trait allows for unique psychological pressure because of this damage over time. Her basic abilities are her Q, Nature's Blossom. After delay, it causes an explosion, which dealing damage in the area. Her W is Crippling Spores. Enemies currently affected by her trait have its duration increased by 3 seconds, and are slowed by 14%, which decays over time. Her last basic ability is her Wisp, which you spawn a Wisp to scout an area, and can be directed once activated, and when the Wisp is in a bush for 2 seconds, the vision radius is increased. This allows for unique scouting gameplay to allow Lunara to not be ganked. The other thing about Lunara too that is not covered here is that she does not have a mount. Unlike every other hero in the game, or most heroes in the game, she has a baseline movement speed increase, which allows her to be a little bit more tricky compared to other heroes to kind of dodge other skill shots. But this does cause a rotation limitation for her character because it will take her longer to rotate on large maps. Now we're going to jump into my build for Lunara, and for the most part she mirrors that of most other Lunara players, but I do have one major difference. So for level 1, we go Nature's Toxin, which just reveals poisoned enemies for its duration. Nothing crazy there. This allows you to poke more effectively when an enemy starts to run away from you. You can kind of chase them down and provide that much more damage, or providing ability for your team to secure a kill. Level 4, Blossom Swell. Increase Noxious Blossom's range by 25% and its radius by 20%. Hitting enemy hero with Noxious Blossom increases Lunara's movement speed by 15% for 3 seconds. This is where my playstyle differs from most Lunara builds. I prefer this talent because it allows you to use your Q more frequently and harass the enemy team. I believe this synergizes with what Lunara does best, which is for your team to secure kills without putting yourself at risk. Most builds go for Nature's Culling, which increases your Nature's Toxin damage by 125% to non-heroes. On maps with heavy PvE elements like the Immortals on Battlefield of Eternity, I would still recommend this talent. Level 7, Splintered Spear. Using Noxious Blossom causes Lunara's next basic attack to hit up to 4 enemies. Again, this is incentivizing what Lunara does best, which is spreading her poisons onto as many targets as possible. Level 10, Thornwood Vine. Send forth vines to all enemies in a line and stores up to 3 charges. The reason I go for Thornwood Vine is that I just enjoy this talent a lot better. A lot of players would probably go for the Starwood Spear for extra mobility and to do more single target damage, but I personally prefer applying my dots from as safe of a range as possible and to not put myself in undue risk. Level 13, Let Them Wither is the baseline choice if you're not in danger of being blown up. So increasing the Crippling Spore duration by 1 second and cause it to be no longer decay, but if you're going into a lot of magic damage, which you'll see in the gameplay, I go for Greater Spell Shield, which is a 75% magic reduction. Level 16, Unfair Advantage. Nature's Toxin deals 60% more damage to heroes that are slowed, rooted, or stunned. With a baseline slow in your kit, this talent will be on most of the time, and if you're paired well with a friendly team member, especially a tank, this talent will become that much more useful in the late game. Level 20, Intensifying Toxin. At 3 stacks, Nature's Toxin deals 40% more damage. And again, this is just incentivizing Lunara's trait as much as possible so that if you're getting your 3 stack maximum, you're just going to be dishing out crazy amounts of damage at level 20. It's also worth noting here that Lunara has some of the best scaling in the game in regards to her Toxin, because unlike most heroes who can have a scaling around their basic attacks with the 4% per level, because of her damage over time effect has a ramp up, in the late game, Lunara's Toxins do much more damage and scale really well at like around 16, whereas her early game may not be as powerful. And on a final note here, comp placement. Lunara specializes in poke damage and sustained pressure, as we can talk about focus on her trait in her builds. And so for me, I would think about placing her in a team that can secure kills after she's sufficiently pressured them enough so that they either have to retreat or are low enough to be executed. Heroes in this situation I would look for like Li Ming, Genji, or Tracer so that they can burst a hero down or execute them once they're below that threshold. And as I alluded to before, frontliners, heroes that provide CC in the form of slows, will help her trait stacks up to maximum quickly. Some of those examples are Arthas, Blaze, or Zool. And honestly, a lot of the frontliners all have some sort of slow or CC built into them, so that almost any of them can work. It's just some of them work better in this scenario. And so the only thing I would like to add here is there's a couple, like, you'll see my gameplay running in here, and in this scenario there was 3 tanks. And so I was having issues where I was not able to provide enough poke damage to keep the front line at bay. As they were a big bruiser team, I wasn't being able to do enough threat to them to make them not want to trade with me, basically, or just get them off the points being Brax's holdout. So you can see some limitations with Lunara because she is a little bit squishier and she doesn't provide a whole lot of damage up front, especially against higher health targets. And with that, everyone, that about wraps up my Lunara build guide. Please let me know what you think, and I'll see you all in the next video.